all created equal. It's the driving theme of the president's second term. We'll hear more of that in 4 days when the president delivers his State of the Union. It will be a continuation of the progressive agenda he outlined in his inaugural speech. The speech will address gun control, immigration reform, education, and climate change. But the key focus is expected to be on the economy and job creation. And that vision turns right to action. The day after the speech, the president will go on the road to sell his agenda to trips to Asheville, North Carolina, and Atlanta. Let's bring in E.J. Dion and Angela Rye. Thanks for being here tonight.
Good to be with you and feel better, Reverend.
I will. Let me ask you, E.J., how do you expect the State of the Union to be different from his other State of the Union speeches?
Well, I think this will be really different because let's think back. In 2009, he was dealing with an economic crisis that was handed him. In 2010, he was embattled on health care. In 2011, the Democrats had just been shellacked, and he had to kind of dig out from that. And in 2012, he knew he needed to win re-election. This is a real opportunity for an Obama strengthened by an election victory to lay out where he wants the country to go. And I think, and when you said in the intro, when you talked about job creation in the economy, I think it's really important that he shift the focus of Washington. I think the country's focus has already shifted away from endless budget battles and toward the job of putting people back to work and creating shared economic growth. And I think we're going to hear something strong from him about that because we just got to get out of these fake contrived crises.
Angela, when you are doing the State of the Union and you know you work the Hill, you're not only talking to the people there, you're talking to millions of Americans. Don't Americans want to hear about jobs?
I think you're absolutely right, Rev. They not only want to hear about jobs, but they want to hear the president lay out a blueprint. The State of the Union is an opportunity for President Obama to talk about not only his legacy goals, but what direction America needs to take. So when we look at, for example, last Congress and the fact that it was the least productive Congress in history, this is an opportunity for the American people to say, look, we need to see movement because we've got some pressing issues. We got jobs, we've got immigration reform, we've got gun control, and we need you all to get on the same page with the rest of the country because the president clearly is.
E.J., at the Democratic retreat, former President Bill Clinton, he said the politics Americans want are in line with this president's agenda. Watch this.
I think the last election was an election where the American people chose an inclusive rather than a divided future. Now that you won this race, that was a referendum in large measure on what the American people did not want, we have to create a future that they do want.
Is that what the president can build on in his State of the Union on Tuesday night?
Well, I think that's exactly right, because what President Clinton said, because you know, it was very clear that Obama created a referendum asking the country to reject a series of Republican ideas, in particular that government has no role to play in building our future and that tax cuts are always, always, always wrong. I think what the job for Democrats and progressives in general, and that's true of progressives in other countries too, is that middle-income and lower-income people have really been stuck in a difficult spiral, really in some ways, for 30 years. And their task is to say, we can move in a different direction. We can have growth that includes not only the wealthy people, but people in the middle and at the bottom of the economy. And so I hope he is not at all shy about doing a little bit of that old Bill Clinton thing and laying out a bunch of specific programs. All those Clinton speeches that were very specific got panned by pundits, but they were very popular with people because they said, here is where I want to move the country.
You know, Angela, he also can be specific about what we're facing, the sequester. Because if the sequester goes into effect, if it goes through, 10% of FAA would be furloughed, USDA food inspectors would be furloughed, 25% Coast Guard operations would be cut. up to 70,000 kids lose access to Head Start, supplemental nutrition programs for 600,000 women and children would be canceled. I mean, he could talk about the real impact of those that are trying to not meet him and in some common ground and force us into an unnecessary sequester.
I think that's absolutely right as well. When you look at the pattern that we've been in with whether it's the debt ceiling fight, the fiscal cliff, it's most definitely been crisis governance, and it's disruptive. And I think at this point, the president really has to lay out an agenda for how we move things forward in a way that makes really good common sense. The American people are clearly on his side on this. He can definitely win not only the future, like the theme of the speech was last time, but really he can win with being a really common sense taking a common sense approach to political governance. I think even though the president is not campaigning, Rev, he's not on the ballot this year, he certainly is campaigning for votes on the House and Senate floor, and he's campaigning for the support and the influence of the American people. He definitely needs them on his side, and he has a great opportunity on Tuesday to lay out a good framework and a blueprint for moving America forward.
Let me ask you this quickly, EJ. A lot of gun violence family victims will be there. Will this be a very awkward problem, an awkward situation for your pro-gun right-wingers when the president is laying out his agenda and you have victim family members sitting there, and the right wing usually sits there without applauding, without responding? How will they be affected by having victim family members sitting there watching their reactions?
Well, I sure hope it'll be an awkward moment for them, and then I hope it turns, for at least a few of them, into a conversion moment. And I think we've seen a lot of conversion on this issue. The NRA has gone out great guns, if I can use that phrase, to try to stop everything, including universal background checks, which are very popular. They're losing that fight. A lot of people who have A ratings for the NRA are saying we could vote for something like this. Yeah. And so I think the tide has turned in a substantial way. There's still a ways to go. Still going to be hard to get an assault weapons ban. But I think people who believe in sane gun laws really are going to win some things this year, and I think very soon.
All right. I'm going to leave it there. EJ Dionne, Angela Rye, thanks for your time tonight.
Thank you, Reverend.
Still ahead, growing up.